Missing for months, Randy Chugg is back home. Emotions ran high at this Jefferson City funeral home as his father, Chris, took a Purple Heart medal from his own vest and pinned it on Randy's casket so he could be buried with honor. Chris Chugg told us last week his son was a hero.
He was our hero, and with his military, and just something we're going to do as a father and a best friend.
Sunday, hundreds showed up to express their support for Randy Chugg's family and pay their respects.
They are nothing in the shadow of the cross.
Honoring Randy doesn't end here. Chris Chugg says he's setting up a scholarship in Randy's name to help students who want to go into arts because Randy enjoyed music and expressing himself through art. Chugg also says he wants to raise awareness about depression and help other families who may find themselves in this situation. While his son may be laid to rest, Chris says Randy's name will live on and will make a difference.
So it came through here and then basically blew out the window, completely obliterated it.
Dave Farron describes the path of a bullet fired from the parking lot that went through his restaurant.
There's a bullet hole in the wall right there. Traveling at pretty good velocity because I went all the way through here.
Police say shell casings were found at the scene, but right now there are no suspect descriptions. Farron says it started with a fight at Southside Pizza and moved across to his parking lot. Shots were fired before at least one vehicle peeled out and left the scene. Farron says this time the shooting is too close to home. Even though he's got some repairs to make, Farron says it could have been a lot worse.
You know, the bullet hole in the curtain here, that's right about head height. So if there had been someone sitting down in a chair right here, it could have gotten really bad.
And he believes the recent violence in Columbia is not going to stop unless some changes are made.
I don't think this is the end of it. So. Unless we get a whole lot more aggressive.
I asked employees at Southside Pizza what they saw last night, but they declined to comment.
Everything we look at right there, that's fuel to burn.
A fuel tank explodes as this truck slowly burns out. Flames from the truck spread further down the road and threaten a nearby home and barn. Today, crews saved the property but blamed tall and dry grass.
It's spreading very rapidly. When you have winds of 15 to 25 miles an hour, the fire is going to spread as fast as that. And so trying to get out ahead of this thing and find a good place to stop it. You can't really attack this fire in these tall grasses.
This fire on Hatton Chapel Road required 14 units and burned more than 30 acres. After getting stuck in the mud, the owner of the truck left to go call for a tow. Moments later, the fire began.
A hot tailpipe or a hot catalytic converter from a vehicle is hot enough to start a grass fire in today's conditions.
And 1 hour later, another fire spreads across 25 acres on Bourbon Road near Sturgeon.
Small fire, well contained, no big deal. I'm going to just burn a small spot. Feel this breeze?
Yeah.
Now imagine putting that behind a fire. Where's it going to go? Wherever it wants.
On National Cover Fire, 1851 Aikman Bridge.
Another call for help, this time on Aikman Bridge Road. Officials say it took minutes for it to engulf more than 10 acres, and it's caused fire crews to change up their tactics to meet the demands.
We use rakes, blowers, and pump packs, which is carry 5 gallons of water on our backs, and you can actually squirt water.
We are starting to have to fight fires with this wind and as dry as it is, like they do out west. People help us. They got to stop and stop burning right now. Let us get some rain.
Yeah.
You know, it can wait a little bit.
Nail guns blasting through plywood. Dirt being moved or hauled from work sites. These are now part of the daily scene in Joplin.
It can be, it's still difficult. There's obviously reminders.
In fact, some structures still sit untouched since the tornado.
We go through and we take those down, but at the same time, the stages overlap. We've begun the rebuilding process.
Of the 75 homes destroyed by last year's tornado, 55% have been granted permits to rebuild. But it's hard for the city to keep track of how many have actually begun construction. One project on the fast track, the new Mercy Hospital. Heavy machinery is already moving earth to get that new campus fully functional in 3 years. Until then,
These steel frame concrete pieces come in pieces. They're put on permanent foundations, they're welded and joined together.
A temporary building is going up and should open in roughly a month. As for the original, once known as St. John's, it was destroyed.
It's going to be hard to have it not there anymore. I mean, it's been an icon in this community for a long time.
Another icon being torn down, Joplin's High School. It was one of 6 schools lost in the tornado's path. It's also one of the 5 schools to be rebuilt if an April bond issue passes. Part of that bond issue includes storm shelters for each of the schools.
Getting the type of shelters that we need at each of our schools to make sure that our kids know that when the sirens go off, whether it's drill or practice, it doesn't matter what happens, we're going to be okay.
Right now, what has to be okay is being in limbo. The city is in a mix of tearing down and building up.
Joplin residents tell me they are healing from last year's tornadoes. These open lots where houses once stood aren't so much open wounds as they are scars. These residents are ready to move forward.
Still got cabinets. It's still open. It's still closed.
Volunteers have become another common sight, whether they're cleaning out or putting up a home.
I first came here and saw the desolation with no houses, block after block. It was a bit of a shock.
Bales brought students from the Sunnydale Adventist Academy out of Centralia to help resident Charles Spencer rebuild.
The best I could do was just come in here and cover stuff up with plastic. But even then, I lost still so much stuff.
Spencer is grateful for the help. He says other groups have promised to show up, but they never did.
No, I don't know how to thank them.
The words everyone in Joplin seem to agree on.
If I could just say one thing, it'd be thank you.
The calls started rolling in just before 5 this morning.
See a whole bunch of smoke coming up and start to smell all the oil type stuff burning everything.
Adam Beston was visiting friends who live behind Loop 70 Plaza. They woke up as 11 fire units and nearly 40 firefighters arrived on the scene and called out a second alarm.
It was just everything was smoking incessantly and they were having a lot of water on it, but it didn't seem to really be having any effect.
That smoke slowed traffic on the business loop until police shut down the road, but it kept going across I-70.
The wind couldn't quite make up its mind which direction to come out of.
That wasn't the only problem for responders. High temperatures and explosive products inside the building,
as we did have projectiles coming across Business Loop 70,
made the fight more like a juggling act. Columbia Fire tells me no one was hurt. But the damage estimates are coming in around $7 million, a total loss.
Much of the building was ready to collapse, and so we wanted to try to make the building a little bit safer.
Hundreds of spectators say they will feel that loss.
I was in shock, really in shock.
Carrie says she just visited the Dollar General store and knows people who do most of their shopping there because it's so close.
I honestly didn't think it would look this bad.
Non-prescription colored contacts may seem like a fun accessory to complete your Halloween costume with, but optometrists and even the FDA warns the outcome could be scary.
If they lose their eyesight, I don't think any Halloween or any party is worth that.
And experts say that wearing these contact lenses for even a night of Halloween fun could lead to a lifetime of vision loss. So today, I put the contacts to the test. I went to an area Halloween store and bought the lenses. But before I could make my purchase, the clerk gave me safety advice.
They are a costume novelty thing, so we don't ever suggest prolonged wear, and definitely don't sleep in them. You know, that's one of those big no-nos.
And I had to sign a waiver.
It says, yes, indeed, you are aware that these are going in your body and that ultimately it's your responsibility.
The clerk tells me these contacts are hugely popular, and a large group of people that buy them are first-time contact users. I'm a regular contact wearer with plenty of experience on proper handling, but those who don't know proper insertion, removal, and cleaning techniques are at risk. I just put these in, and already they're huge in my eyes. They're not fit like a normal contact, so they're uncomfortable, they're blurry, and I'm having trouble seeing. Which was no surprise when Arrow told me some of the biggest concerns with the lenses are decreased visibility and risk of infection. Next, I went to the eye doctor to see how wearing the lenses for just 1 hour affected my eyes.
I don't see any abrasions that you've caused from your short-term wear of those lenses. See a few dry spots we can improve for you.
Dr. Jalali tells me the scratches usually happen from longer wear of the ill-fitting contacts or sleeping in them, but the most dangerous infection can happen immediately.
There are bacteria that once they invade the eye can cause blindness in 24 hours.
Stadium Boulevard is a mess, and if you talk to anyone who uses it on a game day or just needs to get home from work during rush hour, they'll tell you it's been a mess since before this construction started. Now some people worry what these barrels bring may not be much better. It's the diverging diamond, and it's unlike any traffic pattern we've seen. You've probably seen this diagram, but to figure out how to navigate the new Stadium I-70 crossroads, we hit the road to Springfield and the home of the first diverging diamond interchange in America. It's here at I-44 in the Kansas Expressway where we meet the diverging diamond expert.
I guess you can say that since we did the first one.
Don Seiko and MoDOT traffic engineer Joe Rickman. These guys are helping 38 other states and Australia build the design.
Nobody wanted to be first to try it, so we went ahead and tried it, and it worked, and now they're taking off everywhere.
Part of the popularity, these things are cheap. To rebuild this Springfield bridge would have cost $15 million. The diverging diamond was an 80% savings. Now it's Columbia's turn. The city, state, and taxpayers will drop about $3.5 million, but the diamond's just part of a nearly $13 million redevelopment. So what's this thing look like? How does it work? Well, hop in. Using MoDOT's animation and our cameras in Springfield, we'll show you.
I think the public, they're a little nervous. They think that, they're on the wrong side of the road.
Well, you are, at least for a minute, but then it's back through another light and crossover and onto the right side.
I just tell folks, relax, follow the stripes, follow our signs. Don't panic and let that I'm on the wrong side of the road feeling get you in trouble, because that would really be the only way you can mess at it.
MoDOT says it's safer because there are no more left turns into oncoming traffic.
A lot of our severe accidents were caused when you're trying to turn left on the interstate. Well, this eliminates that. You're not turning in front of traffic anymore.
Numbers from the city of Springfield show in the first 3 years it was open, the number of crashes here dropped, except one kind.
The only thing it's really we've seen any kind of an increase in is side swipes, people rubbing fenders a little bit. But I'll take that. Those are not typically injury crashes.
But the design was born out of a need to move more traffic more quickly.
We used to experience 30 minutes, 40 minutes or more delay to get people through just to get to the interchange so they could turn or get into town.
That sounds familiar, right? When we asked Springfield drivers how they felt about the interchange, they're putting one of these intersections in Columbia, and we're trying to figure out if people down here like it or not. Travel time topped the list.
And that's I think it's awesome.
You like it?
Oh yeah, because before you'd have to wait a long time at the beginning of this Kansas Expressway because you'd have to wait for this traffic, and this way we're all going the same way.
Not everyone's as enthusiastic.
It moves faster, but other than that, it's kind of confusing.
A little confusing, but it moves quicker?
It does move a lot faster.
It flows faster, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You like it though?
No.
No?
I don't.
Why not?
Yeah, I probably will in a couple years. I don't know, it seems confusing.
We even caught one driver not quite sure which turn lane to use. The experts in Springfield say that happens everywhere, and following this flow is actually pretty easy.
Don't undersell it before you drive it. Keep your mind open, pay attention to what you're doing, follow the signs and the stripes, follow the signals.
Especially if you've survived the mess that's been here until now.
And if you knew what it looked like before, the traffic backup, you'd appreciate it. Once you go through it and realize what it's like and you get used to it, you'll love it.
Happens every year. The search for that perfect costume involves trying on different ensembles and accessories, like masks. But what's found inside the mask could be more frightening than what's outside. I bought 3 masks from Halloween stores and took them to an MU biologist, Dr. Bethany Stone, so she could test for bacteria. This was Tuesday morning. She swabbed around the mouth area, the eyes, nose, and the outside of each mask.
We will incubate or store these plates at 37 degrees Celsius, which is 98.7 degrees Fahrenheit, so body temperature. So the odds are that the bacteria we are growing could grow on a human body.
Once the cultures were collected, Dr. Stone put them in the incubator for 24 hours.
Bacteria's everywhere.
It's now Wednesday morning. We found hundreds of colonies of bacteria we typically can't see.
Bacteria grew from almost every part of the mass. Each colony, each little spot on these petri dishes is one bacteria cell that has gone on to divide and become multiple cells, enough for us to be able to see with the naked eye.
The rubber devil mask had the most growth.
The devil mask was especially contaminated, if you will, around the mouth. So we have, 500 or so colonies is an estimate there. I was surprised this morning when I opened up that incubator and saw this many colonies.
The wolf mask registered the second most bacteria, centered mainly around the mouth area, followed by the plastic skull mask, also suffering the highest bacteria around its mouth. Despite the large amount of growth, Dr. Bethany Stone says most of these bacteria are harmless, but there is still a little concern.
The only thing at this point that I would be concerned by is if a child, for example, has an open sore, maybe a cut on the face, and that would be an opening where the bacteria might be able to get in and cause problems, cause a staph infection.
Stone says if parents are concerned, the best way to get rid of the germs is to wipe down the mask with rubbing alcohol or hand sanitizer, focusing especially on the mouth, nose, and eyes.
High school sports. They're a big deal for many. For some, an athletic scholarship may be their only chance at college and perhaps a career in sports. But an injury in the game could prove a game changer in life.
Your injury was where?
Right over there, about a 20-yard line.
Jackson Nikolai is a senior at Columbia's Hickman High School. In a 1.5-year period, he suffered 3 concussions.
I really was confused. I didn't know what was going on.
His first concussion was in a game, followed by one in gym class, then his third in football practice.
What effects are you having, after having 3 concussions in a pretty short time period?
I have headaches. I forget things that usually most people wouldn't forget.
After seeing a specialist, Nikolai made the decision to quit football because the risk was too great. A concussion is caused by a direct or indirect jolt that shakes your brain inside the skull.
In severe enough instances, it actually hits the side of the skull and causing the injury to the brain.
Pat Forbes is the coordinator of sports medicine for St. Mary's Health Center, providing medical coverage for Jefferson City and Elias high schools. He says people need to rest the idea that if you have a concussion, you have to be knocked out. Forbes says sometimes athletes can look normal after a concussion. Then 2 to 3 hours later, they start showing the symptoms like dizziness, headaches, and light sensitivity. If a concussion isn't caught, dire consequences can happen.
There's a thing called a second impact syndrome.
Forbes says it's suspected this happens in athletes up to the age of 19 who keep playing before a concussion has healed.
What happens is the brain begins to swell. 50% of those who have this injury are pretty well incapacitated mentally the rest of their life. The other 50% die.
But even with this potential outcome, it's just been in the last several years that major changes to concussion protocol have happened. In 2011, a law passed in Missouri which requires a youth athlete suspected of having a brain injury be removed from competition for at least 24 hours. To come back, they have to be cleared by a healthcare provider trained in concussions. Misha helped write that law and also has more guidelines on top of that for returning athletes to play.
We do have a protocol in place which it goes over about a 7-day period of time.
Steps include rest and light exercise. Once symptoms are gone, the athlete progresses back into play, which can be days or weeks.
Do you have any numbness or pain going down your arms?
In Jefferson City and Columbia high schools, not all but most athletes in contact sports are given a test, usually at the start of the season, to see what their normal is. After a suspected concussion, the athletes are tested again to see where they stand. I had Stephanie West, the certified athletic trainer at Hickman, run through this test with me.
Part of it is just, what are your symptoms? Do you have a headache? Do you have nausea?
West also tests memory and concentration.
Say the months in reverse order.
October, September, August.
You stand up and do some balance. You stand on one leg, but you can't hook your leg against the other one, so just pick it up.
With eyes.
In Jefferson City, they track data on concussions among athletes, looking for trends to get a better idea of what to focus on.